welcome to Show Up, Stand Out, online visibility series for established entrepreneurs, where we show you what to do, know, or have to build an unignorable and profitable personal brand. Today's guest is an influencer and branding expert, Jeff Hunter. Hi, Jeff. Welcome to the show.
So happy to be here, Juliette. Again.
Yes, again. Jeff actually was at the beginning of my journey when I had my very first show, Easy Chats, and we had an absolutely amazing show. And so I'm so excited. I know that there's so much amazing energy. And tune in, make sure you clear your schedule, cancel everything, and stay with us till the end of this show. We won't hold you too long, but we are full of really great, actionable tips and advice all about personal branding. Now, Jeff, let me just introduce what your background is for those who don't know you. Jeff builds personal brands for accomplished CEOs and founders who are ready to leverage their business achievements and become influencers in their category, which is a brilliant thing, because you know what? When you have done a lot in your business and you have so much to share, like the next step, I think, is to be recognized as an influencer and a thought leader.
You know, one of my favorite clients, her name's Kathy. She, you got to get her on your podcast too. She's a savage, but she has a call center next April of 2021 will be her 30th year owning a call center. And her call center has worked with like the biggest Fortune 500 companies. She's got like 3 offices. She just got done acquiring another call center the same size as hers, like in January, like last month.
Awesome.
So like, well, I guess, wow, the time's gone. It's already a couple months ago. But the thing is, she never actually developed her personal brand. So she was hiding behind the company name, the company logo, right? And I think that there's a lot to be said about a personal brand. And one perfect example of that, and by the way, the reason she was able to acquire the other company is because they looked her up and they said, well, are we going to be in good hands? And they saw, we've been working together on her brand. She started a podcast called the Go Big, Grow Broke podcast. You'd be great on that one too.
We'll have a lot to talk after this show is finished.
Yeah, right. We are all about going big or going broke, right? So, but what's interesting is that she was able to basically position herself, and we've kind of positioned herself as a thought leader on LinkedIn in the call center space. And it's really helped her in the position to, basically buy a company the same size as hers. It's just incredible. And if you think about let's do an example everyone knows. Ready for this one? Elon Musk. This guy has built such an incredible personal brand that he could close, he has SpaceX, right? Like he's landing rockets after he shoots them into space on a pad out in the middle of the ocean while it's moving. He has Tesla Motors, of course, the craziest, most amazing electric cars in the world. He's got the Boring Company. People don't even know about this. The Boring Company that just literally drills holes underneath the earth. And his personal brand is so amazing that he could close one of those companies, or he could just start a new company. And let's just say he decided he wants to build the number one, the best electric motorcycle in the world. He could literally go on Twitter and he could say, going to make the world's best electric motorcycle, taking deposits now, $100. And he would already, in one Facebook post and one Twitter, well, he is not on Facebook, but on one Twitter post, he'd be able to literally get probably 100,000 orders in a day. Right?
Yeah,
and become the number one electric motorcycle company in a day.
It's the attraction. It's the fact that we work with people, we buy from people, we get so engrossed by following people. We never get the same thing with just following brands and companies. That's kind of boring and faceless in a way. Even no matter how they try, it's still kind of boring. And I think that we just scroll by. So with building what you've mentioned, as people, we have a right to change and adapt and evolve. And sometimes what we are today is not what we were 3 years ago, 5 years ago, right? And this is what the beauty of being human, I think, for me personally, to take U-turns and change in the direction wherever I'm called to. And so with the personal brand, there is a green light because you're building it around who you are. But if you are hiding behind a company logo and then the association of whatever you're doing is just with that one thing, I find that it's very limiting. It's like actually feels very suffocating to me even to think about it.
You know, I'm just going to be blunt. The fastest way to grow your business is to actually leverage your personal brand, because you can actually get, you know, no one's asking a company to come on a podcast. They're asking the people, right?
Exactly.
No one's asking a company, right, about the company's insight in industry. No, we are now at the point in time where the opinion is very valuable. People want trusted sources that have really bold opinions. And you know, think about you know who's a perfect example of that, who dates like the fatherhood. Actually, there's two people I'm thinking of, but we're going to leave politics out of it. We're going to go with Richard Branson. Okay, Sir Richard Branson, who, you know, back in the day, he was doing outlandish things because there wasn't social media. I had the pleasure of listening to Richard Branson speak just a couple of years ago at an event. And he was saying the reason why he did these outlandish things like race a boat across the ocean and do a hot air balloon and whatever else was because he said at that time that was the only way to get in the press, was to do something crazy and outrageous, right? And nowadays with social media, if you have a good story, if you are truly good at putting yourself out there and positioning yourself in a way to be a thought leader, to be a disruptor in your industry, you can blow up. You can get featured on the news. I've been featured in publications all the time. I just spoke at Digital Agency Expo at the premiere last year. Spoke 45 minutes before Gary Vaynerchuk. Got to hang out and speak with Gary Vaynerchuk, and that interview did really well. All because of my personal brand.
That's right. That's right. So in a way, the question could be, there's a couple of things that you said there. And I do love Richard Branson. I just love him personally. I don't even care about the whole Virgin Empire, to be honest with you. I had a crush on the person themselves. And I really, and it's the same with, you know, when Steve Jobs was alive and, you know, the whole thing that he represented. I don't even see that connection anymore, you know, with the Apple. I have no connection, even though I do use Apple products. I don't have any connection. And so we do have this thing. What is the fastest way for somebody to build the personal brand in your experience?
Well, let's talk about what's not the fastest way.
Yeah, let's do that. Yeah, it's easier sometimes to see what's bad.
So there's quite a few ways to build a brand, but you probably saw last year I released the core branding method, which focuses on 4 main aspects of building a brand. And the very first thing that you need to focus on is building a connection with your audience. So you have to make them feel like, and you probably get this a lot with your personality and how much content you put out there, but I go to events and people come up to me that I've never met before in my life and give me a hug like they know me, right? And it's because through the power of storytelling, through the power of putting yourself out there and having a right content strategy, I've been able to build a deep emotional connection with people that I don't even know, right? People feel like that. And so that starts with developing out your core stories. Your core stories are, why do you do what you do, right? Your origin story. What did you do before? You know, last time I was on your show, I teared up. Both of us teared up,
We were, it was
and
amazing.
it was a very emotional journey. You had interviewed me 1 year after I had left my job. Now today's 1 day after the 4th anniversary of me leaving my quote unquote day job. And because I left on leap day, technically it's my 1st anniversary.
Wow. Imagine. Yes,
Right?
it's true. Wow. That's so cool.
I took the leap on leap day.
Yeah.
February 29th of 2016. And, I had built a company kind of on the back burners and the side just as a hobby for fun. I've always been an overachiever, a workaholic, some call me. But when you build out these stories and people understand where you're from. So I'll paint a picture for you guys. Here I was, a project manager for a Fortune 500 company, made good 6-figure salary, had a company car, company computer, company phone, and I even had $75 a day per diem to buy food, which is how I got fat. And I really felt like I was on top of the world. You know, I was a top 5 project manager, and I had just been promoted 3 times. I was then a project manager 3. They put that number 3 at the end of your name to make you feel important, right? But my marriage was suffering. My relationship with my kid, my 3-year-old kid, was suffering. The relationship with my own family, because my dad was diagnosed with cancer in February of 2015 and was told he wasn't going to live till Christmas. My grandfather in November of 2015 was diagnosed with something called valley fever, which is an infection of the lungs. And then my wife and I went through one of the still to this moment, one of the most horrible disasters you can imagine, which is facing a miscarriage at 10 weeks, which was, wow, really humiliating and horrifying, because we had just announced on social media that we were pregnant, right? And I say we because, yeah, I helped make it. And it was just, my job told me that they'd let me transfer back to California, back home, because I moved up to Portland, Oregon to take the position. And when I did that, they told me I'd be able to move back within a couple years. Well, 3 years later, they denied my first request when my dad got cancer. My second request when my grandfather was diagnosed with that and was literally lost 100 pounds laying on a little medical bed at his house dying. And then when my wife and I had that miscarriage, I wouldn't even get the day off to go with her down to the operating room to have, well, you know the rest of that story. It was at that point in time when I realized they don't care about me. They just didn't care about me. And I always had a passion for doing project management, and I was always in IT, in building websites. My very first entrepreneur moment was back in early college, when I went around to plastic surgeons door to door and was basically pitching websites to them. And I would go on Graphic River or whatever these websites were back in the day and download a template because I had no idea how to do it. I would just modify
as long
the
as
template.
it's done. I'm self-taught too. It's like, as long as it's done.
Yeah, that was before I knew anything in life. I was in my early 20s. And so I just decided, maybe this is the time to go all in on me, And I made a lot of
decision,
mistakes.
isn't it? Is that one of those defining moments in life when you just say, well, I'm taking the bull by the horn here. It's now or never, and it's only me who can do it.
And that's it. I remember that email at, it was February 28th when I wrote the email at 9 p.m. at night, but it wasn't until 3 o'clock in the morning of the 29th that I hit the send button, because I was, oh my God, I was crying. I was praying to God. I was talking to my wife, talking to my family. I didn't even have anywhere to live if I quit my job, because, I literally moved for the job, and I left, and you know what? It was the best decision of my life. My dad is still alive today. My grandfather, who passed away 1 month after I quit my job, I took my family and we moved in with my grandfather. And we were able to spend that last year of his life together. And man, it was incredible. The last 30 days of his life. And that first year, I realized something. I had packed up my family. We went to the Philippines, and I straight up built what I was working on at the time, which is still, probably 60% of my revenue, which is VA Staffer. My VAstaffer.com business, my virtual assistant company. And that company has blown up. I've got 52 people on my team between that and my branded media team, because in 2018, I started a new company. So now I have 2 companies. One is a virtual assistant company that does support, and then a branding agency that actually helps people make money. So I've separated it by that. One is a support company and one is a branding company. But the point of what I am sharing here with you guys is that at this point in time, you said, okay, a little bit about my journey, right? This was intentional to build that deep emotional connection with you, right? And the emotional connection, it's incredible how many people don't have their origin story just figured out, like where you come from. When people say, who are you? What are you about? People need to know why you do what you do, okay? So that's why you develop the connection with someone first, because you can't get to their head and their pocketbook if you can't get to their heart. You got to get to their heart first. That's the number one most important thing, in building a brand. When you said, what's the fastest way to build a brand? The fastest way to build a brand is understanding who you are and having that developed out so that you can tell people quickly and easily.
Exactly. So you mentioned the core method, and maybe this is a great way to kind of like define. So the first one was connection.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to go through the rest as we're,
Yeah. So the next one is omnipresence. That's the O in core. So omnipresence is about how do you show up? How do you show up? How do you visually look, and what's the type of content that you put out? So for me, I'm always about, well, now I'm Savage, right? So funny story about this brand, the Savage Marketing Academy. One of my clients from back in the day, Dan Henry, which I know you know, he's a great guy, kind of in your face marketer, teaches people how to do Facebook ads, show them how to run courses. And we've been working together. We're both kind of mutual clients and friends. And he said I helped him actually launch this savagemarketer.com, which was his brand. It was a academy. It was a $297 a month kind of membership to a membership program for his training courses. And but then he kind of lost interest in it because he was able to buy this domain name, getclients.com, which he thought was incredible, which it is a great domain name. But the thing is, this went by the wayside. It just fell off the earth. And one day I was out I have a black convertible Camaro, and I was out in that thing, and my son and I stole this swag from 2018 when I spoke at his event, AdCon Live. And me and my son and I were in the Camaro, and we both had on a black Savage Marketer shirt and hat. And I had the top down, and we took a selfie. And I sent the picture to Dan Henry, and I said, Dan, what are you doing with this brand, man? This is so fun. Like, my son and I love it. And then he was like, I'm not doing anything with it. And I said, well, I know it's going to sound crazy, but what would it take to buy the brand? So we worked out a number. I think I got a good deal, but the first number I threw out there, which I'm not going to get into the numbers, but the first number I threw out there was, a couple 4 figures. He was like, come on, Jeff. My first offer was $3,000. He goes, come on, Jeff. I could sell all the swag in my garage and get more than $3,000. And I was like, wait a second.
You have it?
Swag? You got swag? I was just going to buy the domain name and the logo, Now we're talking. So he sends me a picture and a video on the phone of all the garage. Half of his garage was filled with Savage Marketer hats and shirts and binders and whatever you could imagine. He was a swag master. And it was just, I was like, oh, now we're talking. So we worked out a little bit of a different number. And then part of the deal was I had to fly out to his house, pick everything up into a van, and drive it home.
He knew what he was doing.
I called my copywriter, Kevin Funn. He works with Ty Lopez and a couple, V-Shred and a couple cool companies. And he helped me develop the core branding method, actually. We flew out there, picked up the van, went to his house, had a fun night, and then drove on out. So the reason why I'm doing this too is showing, this is the core story. This is a core story for how the Savage Marketer brand was born, right? So now, how do you put that Savage Marketer brand out there? So I'm going to do something interesting. I haven't actually done this before. I'm going to show you guys exactly what the Savage Marketer, my Jeff J. Hunter brand looks like. I'm going to. Are people going to be able to see my screen if I share it?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Ooh. All right, y'all. Here we go. Okay, let me see if I can figure out.
Revolutionize the format of Show Up, Stand Out. For those of you guys who are watching it, if you're listening to it on a podcast, I'm going to pop a link to the video here so you can actually go and see what we're doing.
Yeah. Okay, sharing my screen now. So those of you who are listening to the podcast, you're missing out.
Big time.
Go to the link. All right, so this is it. This
looks awesome.
This is what the Jeff J. Hunter brand looks like.
I love it.
Thank you. So I've integrated the Jeff J. Hunter and the Savage Marketer brand together. And as you know, I think you know this a little bit, but my branding agency, this is one of our core offers, is the brand guide, because everything that you do is part of so this is what we call, get ready for this, the omnipresent brand guide. This is how you show up across all platforms. A lot of people don't pay mind to how you show up across all platforms. They're thinking about how I show up on LinkedIn or Facebook or Instagram or YouTube or whatever. But what I'm going to show you today is how I intentionally show up across all platforms. So here's my manifesto, which actually I stole from Dan Henry too. Since I bought it, I might as well take it. And it fits. I'm not afraid to disagree. I'm not afraid to be different. I'm not afraid to take a stand. And I'm definitely not afraid to be real, right? So there's what the logo looks like, the typography of the logo, what fonts are used for it, and also how to use it across different formats. Like here's more of a square and a fave icon. It's crazy how many people don't even have like a planned out fave icon, the little icon in the top
that's
of your
right.
site,
Yeah.
right? And here's how not to use the logo. And then this is what's called cross-platform fonts. In other words, you're going to use these fonts on everything from your website to your Facebook images to your lead magnets to your printable guides to your banners. Everything you're doing is going to use this. So I use these very specific fonts. And of course, the color scheme is pretty important to know. And even the tints and shades to use, down to these are the secondary colors, which I like to call the pop colors. So like your buttons and everything. So I've got yellow for my yellow buttons, my call to actions. And there's my cover photo, right? Cover photo for Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn and YouTube. And look at this. These are really fun. So quote boards. People don't even think about, like, one of the most important parts about building a brand is becoming a thought leader. And becoming a thought leader in industry requires you to actually say some intelligible things and make a stand, and you got to be able to show up. So this is even just how my social media posts look like. And then, you know, what's cool is when we're done with the brand guide, my team turns all of these assets into Canva templates so an idiot like me can actually use them. And then we go into video frame templates, right? How do you show up inside videos? Obviously, by the way, if you're listening, if you're watching this right now, if you're just listening, you can get out of this. But what I want to explain, what we're looking at here, is you have to have big, bold titles on your videos. You have to have captions, and those loading bars that go across, like that Gary Vaynerchuk style. I'm telling you, they're so important because it gives people, it grabs people in. It grabs people in. And you know how many times you watched a video and then you keep clicking the video to see that progress bar go across to see how much of the video is left.
Yeah,
Basically,
that's
you're
right.
taking the work out for them. They're saying, okay, the end of this video is coming. There is hope, right?
I love that you mentioned it, because to be honest with you, I've noticed, like, as the world evolves, the world of social media evolves, all these things evolve, but a lot of business owners just like, you know, this one knowledge, they've learned something and then they stick to it, and they stick to it forever. But you can't do it on social media. For example,
Right.
like this, I've noticed myself checking out how long is the video, literally on every video I'm watching. So something like a progress bar is a plus for you, 100%.
And it's really a psychological play, because you're literally saying, hey, look, I just want a little bit of your time. It's basically
Exactly.
a visual way of saying that, right?
Yeah.
And then mock-ups for your marketing materials, like here's what my letterhead would look like and my business card, and then the website. And of course, what's cool is that my team came up with what the website mock-up would look like. And by the way, custom icons, because I love using iconography. I think iconography is really fun. So I obviously have the joy of having a 50+ person, branding team. So I have graphic designers that can hand draw all these icons. All these icons you see here are literally hand drawn by my team. But what's cool about this is when people say, okay, that's cute, you have a brand guide. A lot of people have brand guides or brand style guides, but when you can actually take the brand guide and translate it into reality, okay? Look at that. That's my actual website.
It's
It
very
looks just
awesome.
like a
Yeah.
brand guide, right? You scroll down, you can see there's my opt-in for the Savage Marketer podcast. A little pop-up comes up there. You can see the core branding method I talk about here, and a couple of testimonials, and what it's like for 4 elements to building an iconic brand and a testimonial video. And even when you go to the media page, you'll notice that right on the very top is a video clip of me on ABC Sacramento out here locally. I'm in Northern California, and sample media questions, and there's the Gary Vaynerchuk video, and guess what? There it is, right? There's my Savage Marketer brand with a little progress bar going across. So it's all about how can you actually get out there intentionally and be recognizable. See, you have to be recognizable. You have to have it so that people, when they see your brand, they immediately know, oh, here comes Jeff, right? Or here comes Juliette, or oh, here's something for Richard Branson.
Exactly.
So I'm going to unshare my screen now, because that gets us into a very important spot. Now I've shown you what omnipresence looks like as far as visually and how you show up. But the third part is actually, to me, one of the most important pieces, because you can build a deep emotional connection with someone and you can be omnipresent, but you can suffer because you're not relevant to your audience. See, relevancy is so important. Why should people watch your stuff? Why should they believe you that you're the expert? And this is where people really mess up, Juliette. They don't have an intentional strategy to put themselves out there and develop content that not only establishes them as an authority in their space, but also helps them build the influence required to make people pull out their pocketbooks and pay, right?
Exactly.
Because Juliette, you could be really pretty and cute like you, right? Or you can be a big old ugly fat bald guy like me. And what's the difference between us if our audience isn't relevant, right? I'm on this podcast today because I know, and you know, that my message is going to be relevant to your audience, that hopefully they're going to get something out of this and they're going to learn from it. And vice versa, I wouldn't show up on your podcast if I didn't believe that I could bring value to your audience. I've said no to a lot of podcasts the last couple of years because it wasn't the right audience, right? So here's the deal. To build relevancy, and I know we're going a little over. Can we go over 5 minutes?
Yes, of course.
Okay.
Of course.
All right. So relevancy, what we do is it's all about your brand promise. What is your brand promise? And you introduced my brand promise earlier. You said Jeff J. Hunter helps build personal brands, right, for CEOs and founders who are ready to leverage their business achievements to become influencers in their space, their category, their industry, right? That's my brand promise. It hasn't changed. Everything that I do in my business does that. Now, I may work for some other brands that aren't personal brands, like Cox Communications is one of my brands, domo.com. I do a lot of work with, tech companies. I love tech companies. But some of the personal brands I've worked with, like Ryan Levesque, who created the Ask Method. It's probably one of the most famous books in marketing, the Ask Method. He literally invented the survey quiz lead magnet. So here's the deal. How do you be relevant? How do you back up your core promise? How do you back up that brand promise? So if my promise is to build brands and help them leverage business achievements to become influencers in their space, there's 5 main things, and I call these literally the 5 pillars of expertise. Okay, no pun intended, but they're quintessential to building your brand, which for me is branding. It would probably be important for me to help you build a brand that I know something about branding. The second would be copywriting, because copywriting is the essential skill of the marketer. If you don't know how to write a good story, you fail, because even your videos, everything, it's all about the storytelling. The third one for me is about inbound marketing. Inbound marketing is really important because once you put yourself out there, you need to be able to attract people into your network. You need to be able to collect their information. And the fourth one for me is social media. If I'm going to help you become an influencer in your space, I have to know that I can get you as a trusted, reputable influencer on social media for your niche. Okay. By the way, omnipresent doesn't mean you have to be everywhere. It just means that you need to be where your audience is. Okay. And lastly, if I'm going to say that, hey, I can help you build your brand, I have an amazing team that can help build out your brand guide and make your website and all these things, then I have to be good at building a virtual team, which luckily for me is where I started. I'm pretty good at that. So now we've developed out my relevance. So all my content is actually about building a team. Funny enough, here's my phone, and I have a Facebook post drafted that I'm posting literally right after our call today that I wrote on the airplane trip back yesterday. I'm so proud of myself for this one. I have a cool habit.
This is like we never sleep. We never really switch off. Everything is content, and you're always inspired. And
look at this, and I
that.
hope that your people can see this. But I want to show you a post that I wrote. And by the way, I have a habit. This is a great habit. If you guys can do this, I'm going to give you huge points. Matter of fact, if somebody listens to this right now, and they go on an airplane trip or they're in an Uber, okay, I'll give them either or, because not everybody's flying, maybe they're driving, but not, by the way, not while you're driving. You have to be chauffeured. I don't want you typing while you drive, okay? But if whoever contacts me and says, hey, Juliette, I listened to your show with Juliette, and I took your advice, I wrote a Facebook post while I was on a flight or while I was in an Uber, I'm going to send them a hat. I don't care where they live. If they live in Australia, UK, wherever, I'm going to send them a Savage Marketer hat. So listen in. If this is you, if you follow this advice, you contact me on Facebook or you tell Juliette, she'll get me your address and I'm going to send you a hat. Okay.
I am so getting one of those hats.
Oh, you're gonna beat everyone because you got a head start. So look right here on my phone, and I hope you guys can see this.
Let me see something. Yes.
There we go.
Yes.
There we go.
Yeah.
See that?
Mm-hmm.
Virtual teams, they just don't get it. It's hard to describe the look on most faces when I tell them I have 50 plus people on my team that are 100% remote. I've hired team members from all over the world, 7 different states in USA, 30 plus in the Philippines, Singapore, Australia, UK. I wrote this post on an airplane ride. It was an 1.5-hour airplane ride from Albuquerque, New Mexico, out to California. I was training 7 medical practices how to do social media marketing. On the way back, I wrote a post. And see how it's about virtual teams. So that's one of my pillars. So it's all about, relevancy is about building intentional content that helps develop and support your core brand promise. I think of it like this: your brand promise, your core brand promise is elevated in the air, and you've got 5 columns supporting it. Because see, how can someone believe that you're an expert in something if you literally don't have any support behind it? And you and I know this. A lot of people are better at building their personal brand than their business and getting results.
That's true. That is true.
Right? So we have to make sure that we're actually showing people our expertise and we're actually giving them reasons to believe in us, to trust us. But it's not just enough for people to trust and believe us. We have support for these pillars. The support is what I call your network mapping. Your network mapping, your pillar network mapping is who are already experts in these fields that you can develop relationships with, because everyone's a self-proclaimed expert until other experts say that you're also an expert. Then you are an expert. How about that?
100%. I testify. In fact, when we mentioned you were one of the guests on my first show, this is how I've built my brand, by associating or by positioning myself alongside people who were, successfully doing it before I started doing it, and then by association. Like, this is an amazing thing that a lot of people are not, like, they're just shy away from it. They don't understand the value of it.
So in the truth and in transparency of it all, I already mentioned to you guys, to everyone listening here earlier, and you, Juliette, obviously, that for me, inbound marketing is really important, right? So guess what? Underneath my inbound marketing column, I have 2 awesome people underneath inbound marketing that I've developed really great relationships with. One of them is Ryan Deiss, the founder of digitalmarketer.com, possibly one of the biggest inbound companies ever. Matter of fact, they work with HubSpot, which invented the term inbound marketing, on their marketing, right? I've built a great relationship with Ryan Deiss. I've done interviews with him. I've become faculty at digitalmarketer.com. So I've literally flown into Austin, Texas. I've given 2 lessons to their digital marketer certified partners. intentionally, right? And people don't understand how important it is to build relationships like that. Ryan Dice, Marcus Murphy for me, Dennis Yu, I've been able to, even in the branding column, Doug Harrison, who's worked with Coca-Cola and Microsoft. And if you've ever seen a Coca-Cola ad with a polar bear and a penguin drinking a cold Coke out in the middle of the ice, like, you can blame Doug. He's the guy who came up with, that's called the happiness campaign. He's the one who helped me develop the core branding method. So having really strong contacts, and I would even say mentors, if you can get them to become mentors of you, let me tell you, because a lot of people say, well, I don't really have the credentials to build relationships. That's bullcrap. You can really start engaging with their content, making them see that you actually care. People love people who love them.
Oh, absolutely. And it's about giving, isn't it? It's like you give, and you give it genuinely. You connect to connect. You don't connect to manipulate, to spam, to take advantage of. You connect to connect, and you also see if there is a connection. That's how we met.
That is such a great point that you bring up, because the things that I'm teaching today on this podcast, on the show, can be used incorrectly to do fraud and to do harm. What I'm giving you guys, that's my only ask on this whole show, is that you only use what I share with you guys today for good. You're only building valuable, intentional relationships. You're not using it to do bad things, because you and I both know there's a lot of people that have built these relationships, and they're in the industry, and they've been featured on this and that, and they're really good at building relationships, but they're really not good people. Or even worse, they might be really good people, but they still don't know what the hell they're doing. And they're leveraging their connections to build their credibility, to take people's money that they can't get results for. I've been scammed. So have you.
Well, unfortunately, unfortunately, the world of internet marketing, branding, online, or any kind of expert marketing, there is no barrier to entry. Like, as you said, anyone can claim that they're an expert, build this whole thing very strategically, and take people's money. And we've know a lot of stories. Yeah. But you know what? We're not going to focus on that, because for us, the core values here are all being authentic, right? Being authentic and being really, really focusing on the impact that you're leaving, the legacy that you're leaving. And karma is a real thing. So they're only for real people.
That, Juliette, is a perfect lead-in to the E in core, right? We've gone through C, which is connection. We've gone through O, which is omnipresence. We've gone through R, which is relevance. Now we're into E, which is the holy grail that's actually working. Engagement. Engagement is so key to building your brand, because the engagement is validation. The engagement is social proof. The engagement is how we turn just a post or content you do on social media into a conversation. Okay. Content to conversation. That's the key. How can we turn the content and create a conversation out of it? And you'll notice a lot of the content that I do, Juliette, is very focused on getting people to engage with the post. You've probably seen along my journey, I've gotten a lot better at that over the years too. When I came out with Social Copy Secrets, that was almost 2 years ago now. That changed everything for me. Actually, it has almost been 2 years. That changed everything for me, because when I started understanding that I was onto something, that I knew that, like, I was with certainty, like, I know that post that I wrote today, it's going to get a lot of content. It's going to get a lot of comments on it. It's going to get a lot of engagement. Why? Because I've already fostered my audience. I've already shown them the power of what engagement does. And I've shown them how I create a safe environment for people to leave comments, even if it's something I don't agree with. You see on my posts, a lot of times people post that they disagree with me, and I encourage it.
Yeah, there's actually great discussions on your posts. Exactly. And it's an art in a way, because it's great to agree to disagree and have a discussion. That's what makes our world brilliant. We all have different opinions.
Exactly. So here's how engagement works. All of your content really should be geared around, just like I said, your content should foster creation of those conversations, right? So I guess there's almost 3 C's there. That wasn't intentional. Content creates conversation, right? So you have to be focused on how can you bring in your audience to build that connection with you, to where people are fostering engagement, that you are showing up where, not everywhere, but just where your audience lives. You know, for me, I'm on, my big 3 is LinkedIn and Facebook and Instagram. That's my big 3. Okay. And by the way, I would even say, if I was going to say, I'll probably take Instagram at the lowest level, because Instagram really isn't where my audience truly lives. And that what's more important to me even than Instagram is actually doing in-person type things. So I would even say that my audience lives in person, or these podcasts, these shows. This is where I really feel like I make huge gains with my audience, and by gaining new audience, by coming out to Juliette. And of course, I see it as a big win, because I'm like, I hope that Juliette's audience, because, hey, this guy, I really figured something out. I really like what he's doing. And hopefully that some of you guys come and check me out and follow me and sign up for my Savage Marketer podcast or whatever, right? That's the goal. And the same thing, because Juliette, I am a monster. Anytime I'm on a podcast with somebody, I'm going to take that podcast and it's turned into evergreen content, and I will be promoting Juliette forever. And she knows that. She knows the value of interviewing me, because I tell everybody, if I'm on your podcast and you send me the clip, you are going to be on my audience's eyeballs forever.
I love that you mentioned it, because I didn't even for a second think about it when I invited. I just wanted to talk to you again after 3 years.
Well, there's a bonus for you, Juliette.
Talking about connecting to connect.
It's just like every other internet marketer. But wait, there's more. Right? So that's the goal. And I think that's a great way for us to wrap this up, because we talked about developing out your core, right? Which is your connection, omnipresence, relevance, and engagement. Your connection and emotion drives people to be captivated to you. This is what I call the inner core. And this is where we're going to end. The captivation is when captivation is proof. When you have good content that builds a connection with someone, and people are engaging with it, that means that you've captivated your audience. The second piece is when you have a really strong connection with omnipresence. What that builds is community, because now you're building a connection across multiple platforms. This is where you're able to bring people into your Facebook groups, into your lead magnets, into your podcast. This is building that community. That's what's really important. And then when you have that omnipresence and you also have that relevance, that increases your authority, because now you're seen as a relevant expert across multiple channels. Now you are becoming an authority. And the last piece, which is one of my favorites, when you have that relevancy and you have engagement, that's real influence. You are building real influence when people see you as a recognized expert in your field, and you're getting lots of engagement on your content. I'm going to ask you a question. This is a great place to end it. Juliette, when you go to somebody's Facebook page or LinkedIn or wherever, and they have a post and they have like 1 like on it, or no comments or anything like that, what do people believe compared to someone who makes a post and has tons of likes and tons of comments?
Oh, absolutely. The perception, the sheer perception and that first impression even, how do you perceive this person? Are they a sought after influencer or, expert, or it's just a post? It's a big question. Now, we have to mention that you develop this. It doesn't happen from the start, because a lot of people, it takes time to build it up, but it does build up when you're relevant, when you're consistent, when you have everything that omnipresent. So when you have the connection, omnipresence, you're relevant, and then you're building engagement as
exactly. Engagement is proof that what you're doing is working. Okay,
that's right.
And that's where I wanted to tie it all in, because I'm not talking going on Fiverr and buying likes or whatever. This is true, genuine, authentic engagement, and this is why it's so important, because each one of those things by itself doesn't work. If you can build a deep emotional connection with someone and not have influence, you can be omnipresent. You can be omnipresent and not have any relevance. You can have relevance and no omnipresence or no connection. Me and you know a lot of people like that are already really great and experts at what they do, but nobody knows them because they suck at actually building connections with people and being present, right? So that's the thing I want you guys to, and by the way, anyone who's listening to this, you can just go to brandedmedia.io and Juliette, if you want to give them that link. And I have a little training that I put together that really dives deep on how that works. But I really want you guys to think, if you could take away anything from the show today, it would be to really start being more intentional. Intentional about how you show up, more intentional, is that a word? About, I think it might be a word.
It is now. It is
well,
now. In my world, it'll do.
Sure, why not? More intentional about where you show up, more intentional about what you share and talk about, that's relevancy, and more intentional about creating and fostering that engagement. And if you can do all of that, then you've got a great recipe to build not only a strong personal brand, but it's also going to give you respect in your industry. It's going to give you that expert recognition in your industry. And Juliette, you've seen my journey. Like I said, this is my 4th year from leaving my quote unquote job, and I'm already an industry recognized expert. I just got verified on Google. If you type in Jeff J. Hunter, you'll see I have a little Google verified badge up there with my little, all the stuff that I'm doing. And like it talk about validation to finally feel like, oh man, all the work and effort that I'm doing is finally paying off. And if you did that, if you followed what I taught you today with the core branding method, it's not hard. You just have to be intentional.
It's brilliant. And I couldn't probably have wrapped up or giving you an outro better than this. Thank you so much, Jeff. Not only you shared, you taught us, you shared screen, you gave so much value. You literally gave us the whole, how to build a brand strategy. And there's no excuse now not to go and implement,
there's no
guys.
Excuse.
And
that's the way I see it. I want it when I come on to something, when I go on a stage, when I go on a podcast, every time that I show up, this is intentional. I want people to feel like, oh my God, what he showed me was so valuable because I had no idea where to go. And you and I both know, Juliette, most of the reason why people don't do something is because they have analysis paralysis, right?
That is true.
They're thinking like, oh, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. So when you tell them what to do, they're like, holy smokes, it's right here.
And it's simple.
Yeah.
It makes sense.
And a lot of times people come to me and they're like, Jeff, why are you giving this all away, man? Like, how do you even make money? Guess what? The people that want to work with me, when they see this method, if they want to do it themselves, great. If they want to use me, if they want to leverage me, they'll reach out. And that's how I see it, right?
I totally agree. Anyone I don't believe in holding back the value, because at the end of the day, this is also a proof of the fact that you know what you're doing. And it's as simple as that.
I want to tell you something. You are a savage. And
am I going to get a hat?
I'm loving the Savage brand. It's just been so fun.
I love it. I absolutely love it. I love it better than the other pink colors you had in your VA.
It wasn't pink. It was magenta. Okay? It was magenta.
Although
now looking back on it, it was pink. Well, I'm so excited. Thank you so much for having me. And if you guys want to develop out a personal brand, if you want to learn more about doing social media copy or anything like that, you guys can just go to my website, jeffjhunter.com, Jeff, the letter J, hunter.com, and you'll see my Savage Marketer podcast, where I definitely got to get you on my podcast, Juliette. I don't know, because my podcast is an in-person video podcast. I don't know if you're going to be around, but we're going to have to figure out a way to make that work.
Well, there's always something to aspire to. So thank you so much, Jeff. It was absolutely awesome. Guys, I hope you had pen and paper. If not, the replay is available. Just rewind and start again and make your notes. Go and implement. I will see you next week in another episode of Show Up, Stand Out, or maybe you will be listening to my voice. And for now, just focus on your personal brand. Trust me, it's the most fulfilling thing you can choose to do. And I think Jeff is just a great example of that. Look, his face is glowing.
I agree.
Thanks again, and we will see you next week. See you later. Bye. Well, I was able to.